Hello, this is Susan Smith-Nash, and I'm going to talk to you a little bit about participating in a consortium and interaction with partner companies in joint projects. The reason that we're going to do this is that it's very important to keep in mind that there are many factors that come into bear when you are making decisions. And there are a number of reasons for getting into consortia and joint ventures. They may not be as apparent on this as on the surface until you get into them, that there are quite a few complications, and those need to be ferreted out as you're making decisions. But let's look pretty closely at why you would possibly want to be a part of a consortium. First of all, you have access to promising plays. And also, in the case of shale plays or resource plays or offshore, the capital requirements are extremely intense. So it's a very good idea to go ahead and be in a consortium or a joint venture, not only for the amount of money that's required, but also because there are long lead times. So it could be 5 years to first oil. Also, you have an opportunity to obtain technological know-how by partnering. So you have an example. As an example, Chinese have decided to partner with Devon Oil Company in Oklahoma City, very active in shale plays. Why? Because they like to learn the technology. So it's a really good way to buy your way into sort of a mentoring or apprenticeship program. Also, you can overcome the constraints of time. You can share the planning, and you can also partner and utilize infrastructure so that there are some definite economies of scale. Now, in project planning, it's very important to communicate, and it's very important to plan far in advance. And it's we realize that many times in today's environment, the planning process takes place with groups that are distributed in time and place, and they may be in one location in different parts of the world, or they could be on the move. So it's very important to be able to utilize Skype and messaging, instant messaging, in the form of basic communication with social media. But at the same time, one has to keep in mind that many things have to be secure. So, as you are thinking of a communication plan, think about how secure it needs to be and what you need to do to communicate in a timely, effective way that accommodates everybody's schedules and their time changes. So, let's look also that planning and project communication, you must stay within the bounds of legal requirements. It's maybe an obvious thing, but it's fairly important to understand that legal customs and requirements change from location to location. Also, communicate with monitoring and auditing, and make economics-based joint decisions. Every once in a while, it's good to step back too and look at current realities versus past past realities or projected situations. So let's look at three core areas of joint venture communication. The first core area one involves planning and executing operations. So that involves some status updates, operational execution. Core area two, strategic decision making, new ventures to acquire or enter, properties to sell. And core area three, new technologies, game changers, adopt or die, lead the pack. So core areas one and two are pretty obvious, basically have to do with same old ways of checking the boxes and doing what you have to do. Core area three, this really has a lot to do with communication technologies, and it's very important to change with the times. But then, if you're an early adopter, you could be embracing a technology that just isn't going to take off. Or, for example, you have used MySpace for your corporate presence. And then, oops, MySpace became kind of like unpopular. I think we're seeing a little bit of that with Facebook. Are you communicating things with your joint venture in Facebook? Chances are no. But if you're communicating to your core constituency, which is maybe a client base with Facebook, it's both good and bad, because the lack of privacy and the kind of infestation of ads has made it less popular than it used to be. So let's look at operational level execution and drilling. Okay, so if we are in the project planning phase and we're in a joint venture, there are some things we must do and communicate well. We have to have supply chain communication. We have to supply secure services and supplies. And then we have to set priorities. What are your hot spots? And do you have any projects that are already underway? Any projects that are planned? Also, who's involved? The operator, non-operating partner. When there's technology involved, who decides? What procedure do you follow? And if there are unforeseen capital expenditures, who's going to be checking the joint operating agreement to make sure that things are going well and according to the document, the legal document? Also, and here's the probably key thing, always keep, at least in mind, an informal running hotspot anticipatory list. So on drilling, here's just basic stuff. Partner communication, daily drilling reports, weekly updates, AFE budget updates, just a checklist of what you need to provide every day. And then on partner updates, if you are working with a partner and you have to be able to make decisions and you're involved in strategy, let's look at where you would get your sources of information. So here's a quick checklist. I won't read it off, but I will focus here on technical team reports and recommendations. This can be the heart of where you're going to have to be able to talk about making decisions. Now, in production, operational level execution, joint ventures, partner communication. Okay, how often do you provide reports, recommendations? How often do you make capital decisions? And what happens when there's an emergency? There needs to be a plan for communication and a backup plan as well. And again, let's look at the sources of information. And the field reports here, in this case, are generally the key places, and they're data, they're entered in the cloud, generally speaking, so that everybody can access from their secure device. And it's important because this needs to be as instantaneous as possible, especially if there's some kind of required inspection or an emergency, heaven forfend. Now, midstream execution, operational, well, this is transportation primarily and construction. We won't go into a lot of detail, but again, it's the same basic philosophy. Keep updated reports, but the thing that's different in this is a big emphasis on regulatory compliance. It's very, very critical. Now, each joint venture requires a plan. If for operators, this is communication. How often do you report? What kinds of information? What kind of disputes can arise? And how do you set up a process for resolving disputes? That's usually laid out in the joint operating agreement. However, there may be some ways to not have to rise to the level of official dispute, and there might be some informal ways to keep these things from accelerating. So let's go back here, and again, let's look at non-operating working interest partners. It's very easy for them to be frustrated. So let's make sure that everybody has access and they know how to access the information that they need. And there should be some pretty good calls, etc., that take place. Now, in strategic decision making, let's look at the partner communication. And let's just focus here on the competitive landscape. If you're going to be in a joint venture and you're trying to make decisions, it's very important to look at one, a SWOT analysis, and then two, what's changing? What is potentially going to destroy your business because it's a disruptive technology? Can you consider shale plays to be disruptive technology? Well, that's not the technology, but would hydraulic fracturing be a disruptive technology? How about, let's say horizontal drilling, or let's say some water treatment approaches. So let's think about all those things. So again, let's think of strategic decision making in a global context. And here we have looking at just essentially looking at unconventional resources as potentially as a new opportunity. It's good to look at published reports, and it's good to share information, but there should be some way to have some proprietary information that you don't have to get from outside. So again, this is talking about strategy, same basic concepts, communication and sources of information. And then some of the big decision points are going to be when to sell, when to acquire, when to invest in rehabilitating a field, when should you go alone, when do you need to partner. Okay, finally, let's look at technology. If you are in a joint venture and you are only doing vertical wells, there's a problem with your technology, and that is that it's important to consider that there are potential changes. So let's say that you have old fields. Let's say which ones, we know that there are a number of new technologies that you can use. So which ones are the ones that really count? Let's look at horizontal drilling for mature fields, geosteering, smart production and drilling, seismic to detect sweet spots, go in and infill drilling, information systems, inventory management approaches, different kinds of modeling, very, very interesting ways to use data mining, to use big data to make decisions, lots and lots of things like that. Now, okay, let's look at the information again. So, adopt or die. Which are the must-haves in technology? Let's say in old fields, you really need to know hydraulic fracturing techniques, multi-stage fracturing, new materials, new stimulations, proppants, etc., new drilling fluids, hydraulic fracturing fluid, and then there's horizontal drilling. So as you work with your partners, do you want to lead the pack? What are the pros and what are the cons? So anyway, I just wanted to talk about communication and the importance of it in leadership in a joint venture situation and also in strategic decision making. So I hope you've enjoyed this. This is it. Boom.